Hi, this is Rahman Sheikh. Welcome to Fortnightly Railway Transportation Systems Podcast. I am the host and railway systems specialist working in this industry for 24 years and counting. This podcast is primarily focused on railway experts who have vast amount of experience and contributed greatly to this amazing industry. This is not a technical seminar but focuses on feel good stories, individual journeys, their success and failures, motivating younger generation to kickstart their career in railways and creating a sense of pride for the railway people who devoted their lives on the most environment friendly public transportation. Welcome to the Railway Transportation Systems Podcast. In this episode, we are thrilled to have Joanne Morley as our guest speaker, who is head of marketing at Razore Secure. Jo brings a wealth of experience and expertise in railway marketing, safety signaling products, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data science. With her extensive background, Jo is well equipped to shed light on the latest trends, challenges, and innovations shaping the railway industry today. Hi Jo, welcome to Railway Transportation Systems Pod.
Good morning or good evening or good afternoon, wherever you're listening in the world.
So let's start with my first question, straight on to the point. How would you approach the challenge of marketing rail cybersecurity products, and what strategies would you employ to effectively communicate the importance and benefits of these products to diverse audience that includes both technical and non-technical stakeholders?
Marketing any product can be complex, but marketing rail cybersecurity product, I think, brings with it a really unique set of challenges. Just because of the complexity of the product and the diversity of the audience that you're marketing to, can get quite complex. Well, I see it in two ways. So first, I would segment the audience into two main groups. So I think, as you said, maybe technical stakeholders such as IT, OT professionals, engineers, and then non-technical stakeholders. And there's some nuances within those as well. But for the purposes of this podcast, I'm kind of doing it as two groups. And that would include the non-technical stakeholders, would include executives, like operations managers, financial decision makers, procurement. And you've got to remember that each of those groups has different priorities and levels of understanding regarding cybersecurity and on rail sometimes as well. So it's really important to ensure they have access to content that's relevant and meaningful to their needs. When I first started in rail, I knew nothing about it. Like, I knew zero. So I'd be starting meetings not understanding anything because everything had acronyms and things like that. So you've got to appreciate that not everybody knows everything. I'd worked in cybersecurity and I've worked in rail. Bringing the two together are two very different things. So I think for technical stakeholders, one of the things I like to do is focus on some of the technicalities of the cybersecurity products. And that includes highlighting features like, we've got advanced threat detection, compliance with industry standards, and how it integrates maybe with existing IT or OT infrastructure, and really highlight that importance of digital safety. But it's still really important at that level to do things that are meaningful for them. How can we help them do their job better? Not just fill it full of technical things all the time. Yes, they're technical, but what are the benefits to them? Can they get home earlier if they have this product? There's all sorts of things you can do. So, things like white papers, case studies, webinars, product demos are really good tools, but always keep in mind, what is it that they need to know? What is it that they want? What's in it for them? Rather than just bore them with lots and lots of technical information, because yes, as I said, they're technical, but actually they want to know things about the product that's going to help them in their role. For non-technical stakeholders, I think the messaging would centre more on the impact of what if they don't do, if they don't take on cybersecurity measures. And this includes like emphasising how products can protect their company's asset, reduce downtime, prevent costly breaches, and ensure that regulatory compliance. I think things like infographics and, really good executive summaries and non-technical webinars where people can, feel free to ask all sorts of questions and communicate the benefits in a much more kind of accessible manner. So I think through all this, you need to build trust and credibility and make sure you take the lead. I haven't got a better word than thought leadership. I'm not keen on it, but it does, it says what it does on the tin. And so publishing like really relevant and meaningful content in industry publications or, speaking on podcasts like I do today, or information on your websites or other content hubs like LinkedIn, but go out physically as well. I think people forget, go out and meet people. I know COVID, stopped a lot of that, but actually getting out and meeting people where they are is brilliant. So, I'm working with partners and things like that. So I think those are the main things. I mean, in terms of, I think you asked, what would you do? I think webinars work really well, but make sure they're really specific for the audience. Don't try and do a technical one for non-tech because they get lost. Because you deep down. I've been on them where I'm like, I don't understand what's happening, and it's hard then to ask questions like, what does this mean? So really, really think about your audience and do something that's really, really going to help them. If you think about your day job, you like to work with people who are going to support and help you. So, you'll attend webinars that are going to further your knowledge. So, think about that.
Perfect answer, Joe.
Yeah.
I think I really liked it. But going back to the intro, I really did a very short intro for you. Can you explain more about your role and Razore Secure?
So I work with Razore Secure, and my role is as head of marketing, is to really make sure that Razore Secure, is known about in the industry, but also to help them generate lots of really useful content for the people who might use our services. Plus, I also support the business development team. So the business development team are doing bids and things like that. So it's important that me and my team can provide them with the graphics they need, with all the information they need, and support along that business development journey, right from the very beginning, right to the very end, and through account management. So if you think about it, sometimes these people who we're selling to have to promote to internal teams as well. So supporting them with presentations and things that can help them internally also say, look, hey, this is Razore Secure, this is what they do, and do it in that way. So we've got technical, non-technical kind of presentations. So yeah, I support everything right from the initial trying to get leads in, right to the very end, and further on to account management, all the way along that.
Is Razore Secure a UK-based company, or it has?
It is a UK-based company, but we are spread all over the place. So we have people I'm based in the UK, some people are based in Switzerland, we've got in-country, because it's really important to have that in-country presence, really, really important. And that's exactly, what Razore Secure has done. They've built that in-company, in-country presence. So we have people in Australia and Europe and America, in Canada, so we've really embraced that kind of virtual working environment. But yeah, there's been, we've got quite a lot of people who work for the business now, but they're spread all over the world.
Global presence.
Yes.
So, Joe, going back to the first question, I got a follow-up one. You just spoke about customer and what you really need to tell and how you need to communicate. But how important is customer education in marketing rail cybersecurity products? And actually, what methods do you find most effective in educating and engaging potential customers about the complexities and necessities of cybersecurity in the rail industry?
I think it's crucial, and I'd argue it's one of the foundational marketing pillars for success in this field. Cybersecurity is complex; it's constantly evolving. It's standards are coming out all the time, and we want to ensure that customers and potential customers and understand the risks and building those trusted relationships. You can only do that if you give freely. If you give information, if you don't hold back. I mean, sometimes you think, well, maybe I'll just hold back and I'll make that, put that behind it. Not a paywall as such, but you have to give your information to to be able to download a white paper. My approach is kind of different. I prefer just to give, because actually there might be the odd thing that, we've done in partnership with someone else and we may want some details from someone to download it. But I would only do that for something that's really, really valuable. If you go onto websites now, you give your information, you download something, they could have just given away for free. I didn't need to give my details for that. And then for that, then devalues that content. So I think it's really key to develop trusted relationships to drive that adoption. And ultimately, organisations like Razore Secure are helping to protect critical rail infrastructure. So, I think it's not only Razore Secure, it's the other various standards bodies that are playing an increasingly important role as well, and the safety boards and things like that in country. I think of education in kind of 2 or 3 areas, I think. One is building that trust and credibility. So, people are more likely to invest and trust in products from a company that takes time to educate them. And then that positions you better as a thought leader and it's that trusted advisor position. There's a really good book out there called The Trusted Advisor, but it is that you want someone who's going to advise you and give you the best advice. So I think that's one, is trust and credibility. And then I kind of touched on it in my last answer, support decision making. So well-informed customers or prospects are better equipped to make decisions about the cybersecurity needs. So if we can help them understand the complexities, then they can then understand the value and the benefits of the products that we're offering. I think the third one is, if you educate customers, then it drives engagement. And if it drives engagement, it drives adoption. So I think, educated customers are more likely to engage with your brand. They understand the why of your products. There's that famous Simon Sinek talk where he talks about the why of your products. But if they understand the why of your products, then it makes them more likely to invest in you as an organisation. In terms of method, I think I touched on them before, webinars and in-person workshops. Again, I think they're really great because in-person allows that real-time interaction, because when you're in a room with people, you can have those off-site conversations which don't happen in webinars. And I think in the world of digital, people forget I worked in cyber in the 90s, that I started my career in it really, and we travelled the country taking workshops everywhere, talking to people, having those, and it worked amazingly well. So, and it's very different from a webinar environment. I mean, of course, the white papers and technical guides, but just make them really useful. Don't just write a load of technical gumph and, make it, lots of fancy words, really make it useful to them. So I'm working on some of those at the moment at Razore Secure. And that can also take the form of videos or podcasts. And then case studies are brilliant. It's hard in cybersecurity to get case studies. It's really hard because people don't want to talk about what we've done for them. But it makes the abstract concept really concrete. And then I think the other thing is community and building peer networks. A lot of marketers forget about this, but creating user forums, creating those where people can share experiences, ask questions, and nobody feels scared to ask questions. And I've developed those user forums in the past, and they work incredibly well. So wow. I think that answers the question. I think
you did. That's what I want to move to the next phase, which is you answered approach of the cybersecurity products, and you also answered how important it is to educate the customer. But now let's discuss about the threats, the real cybersecurity. With this increasing threat of cybersecurity on railway infrastructure, how can marketing initiatives raise awareness among railway companies about the importance of cybersecurity measures?
I think that, in the previous questions, I've said white papers and webinars and content can cover that. However, in my experience of marketing over the last 30 years, actually not always in rail and cybersecurity, I've worked in some consumer businesses as well. But I think you need to make things tangible for people. I kind of half answered that in the last question, but sharing real world examples, where cyber attacks have caused significant disruptions, financial losses, or, there was a recent incident in Poland where a disgruntled contractor inserted some, I think it's geophantom malware into a fleet of trains to prevent them being serviced by competitors. Or there was some ransomware attacks on the Swedish public, I think it was a transport authority in 20 or 21. And I think the Danish State Railways had some challenges in 2022. I think it was their ICT that was a victim of a cyber attack, and they were unable to get access to some safety critical IT systems. But whatever it is, there are examples out there. And whilst I think it's useful to share those incidents and their repercussions, because they resonate much more than abstract warnings, someone could do this, they could do that, they could hack into your train system, they could. But one thing I learned many years ago was that it's not all about the FUD, the fear, uncertainty and doubt, because that goes so far, but it's also about instilling confidence and demonstrating and educating around, like we discussed, cybersecurity, so that you make that information accessible. So people aren't just scared, because there's no point being scared if you can't do something about it. You know what I mean? So I think developing content that helps those technical and non-technical audiences understand the importance of digital safety and cybersecurity is key. And not just to raise people's fears without offering any context or support or solutions. I used to, when I worked in cyber, there'd be, especially back in the day, there used to be all these you'll get hacked, this, that. They weren't offering concrete solutions. So they were getting people scared. And there was what do we do about it? It's that train of thought. Yes, you can raise this is what could happen and has happened, but here's what you can do about it. I think that is kind of short answer, but I think that's contextualizes it quite well.
It does, Joe. So let's move from cybersecurity. I think we discussed quite a lot on cybersecurity products. As a marketing leader in this rapidly evolving technological landscape, do you see knowledge, trust, and credibility as being paramount? How do you build and maintain trust with potential customers? Are there any specific marketing channels or types of content that you find particularly effective in establishing credibility in these sectors?
It's a really good question. I think the answer is it takes time. Like, you can't just appear on the scene, and there are ways of gaining trust quickly by having useful, relevant, meaningful content, as we've discussed, and having people who are willing to talk to you and spend time with you and build that trusted advisor position. But it doesn't come overnight. Like, it's not like you can set the business up and then all of a sudden you're trusted and everyone thinks you're amazing. I think you need to have a focused marketing plan or strategic thinking to build it over time. I think in terms of specific marketing channels or content, I've covered some of those in the other question, like, meeting people in person, going to events, webinars. I mean, I didn't mention podcasts, but podcasts like we're doing today,
Yeah.
I think my top 2, maybe top 3 would be really go for that expertise and thought leadership to build trust, because you need to demonstrate your expertise consistently. You can't just do one thing, write one paper and then do nothing. I think it means you've got to produce high quality, thought leadership content. Become a publisher. Like, there's a really good question in marketing, and it says, what business are you in? And sometimes that business you're in for a time will be publisher. You're not in the dog biscuit, or the cybersecurity business. You're in the publishing business. And I think if you can share insights on the latest trends, threats, best practices, then you can position yourself better. I think it's, like I said before, it's massively important to create really good information and keep in mind that duality of your audience, and write for them, not for your own vanity. I think I learned that very early on in my career. We would write these big pieces of content that were all about, oh, look how amazing we are, but they weren't written with that customer in mind, with that potential customer in mind. So write content will help and support them, and stop doing the vanity projects. I think the other thing is that heartbeat, like that content heartbeat, just regularly, don't stop. Make it accessible, different formats. So from newsletters, because not everybody likes to read. Some people like to listen, like we're doing today. Some people like to watch. Some people like a combination of things. People learn differently. So I would say do things, work out your content, keep your audience informed, don't overdo it, don't bombard them, don't be sending them like, I've signed up to emails before and I get like 4 or 5 a week. I'm never going to read them. But there are certain newsletters, for example, that I get, maybe marketing ones, and I get them once every 2 weeks. At the beginning of the email, they say, these are the things you're going to learn in this email. It'll take you 4 minutes to read, and they're really well set out, and I like that.
Wow.
So I think, provide valuable tips, showcases latest innovations, do all that kind of stuff. And the third thing is be seen. I think that's the third. Yeah, I think that would be the third thing for me. There's no point being an expert that hides away. Go and meet your audience. And I don't know how much COVID has affected that, but generally before that, go to the places they hang out, participate in industry conferences, trade shows, webinars, seminars, podcasts, because these platforms allow you to share knowledge, and you can network as well. People underestimate the power of just chatting to people, not trying to sell to them, not trying to market to them, but just chat to them, find out. I often want to find out about, when I chat to people, but what about their family? What do they do? I'm not, then you can have that business conversation if you want to, but do that. And speaking engagements are great. Panel discussions are really good as well. But just those events that can really enhance your visibility and credibility, I think, work well. So yeah, that's my answer. Those 3 things.
Yeah, I think slowly people are getting into it. Even I see the IRSC forums, and then we have a webinar or a seminar, and then we go out for a drinks catch up. And I think people are coming out of that COVID zone and coming out of that digital world and actually meeting the real people in person.
Yeah, I think so. I think it works really well because you make a connection. I'm not saying we've not made a connection today on this podcast. We had a little chat before, and we'll presumably have a little chat after, and it's really lovely. But somehow being in a room with someone can really help. You get an energy that you don't necessarily get when you're on a Teams call or a Zoom call or a Google Meet call. So, yeah, I like.
Great tips, Jo. Really helpful for the new entrepreneurs and business leaders. Great answer. So let's move into your other area of expertise, data science. Mm-hmm. Data science is becoming increasingly vital for optimizing railway operations and improving customer experience. How can marketing strategy leverage data science insights to tailor services and enhance passenger satisfaction?
So having worked in rail and having used a lot of data, I think over the last decade we have so much more of it, and it's been so accessible where it perhaps wasn't before. But maybe rather than talk abstractly about it, maybe I could talk a little bit about how I've actually used it, and that might help the people who listen to this. So I think the first is understanding customer behaviour. So you can analyse vast amounts of data related to passengers. You've got, and especially with AI now, but even before that, you have so much information about passengers. You can examine patterns in ticket purchases, travel frequency, preferred routes, peak travel times, season ticket holders. You have such a lot, but you can gain a really deep understanding of customer preferences and behaviours from that. I mean, even at a basic level, I would know what the average ticket value was, people who bought on the app, people who bought on desktop, and people who bought on mobile, so you begin to get that information. But those insights, the most important thing I think I did when I worked for a rail company called Northern in the UK was they enabled us to create personas. I worked with the data team to create highly targeted marketing campaigns. But before we did that, we created some really good personas that resonated with the different customer segments. So that meant we could then offer personalised promotions, travel suggestions based on a travel history. We didn't always get it right. I mean, this was new stuff, back about 6-7 years ago. Yeah. But we were trying our best to try and make the information that we sent to people relevant. So like frequent travellers or season ticket holders might get loyalty rewards, or occasional passengers might get special discounts if they hadn't travelled for a while, or if we wanted to send out information on new routes, we had all this information. So we went from having this massive, just tons and tons of information, to really distilling it down to 5 or 6 personas and really beginning to target them. And that helped us understand customer behaviour. What else did we do? I think in addition to creating the personas, data can also help you understand which communication channels are most effective for each persona. So we would look at how people interacted with email, social media, mobile apps, and our website. And then we refined who got what. So, and we also gave people choices. From a GDPR perspective, we asked people, we didn't offer post, but do you want SMS? Do you want this? Do you want that? Do you want this? And actually we asked them. So they got the information they wanted in the way that they wanted to. So that's what we used it for. And then from a customer experience point of view, I mean, it's vast, because data science can help you. Data can help you identify pain points in the customer journey. So if we analysed customer feedback in place, so we did have that. We also had social media, and believe you me, we got a lot from social media, because, people don't like to say, oh, that was an amazing journey. No one really tweets that, do they? Sorry, X is that, or whatever you call it now. I think, it can highlight where passengers have experienced delays or have complaints, but we would then work closely with the customer service team to address those issues. So making sure perhaps we could inform customers about alternative routes. So along with the comms team, we worked over a period of 3 or 4 years to take that data and see if we could preempt things and just reduce maybe some of the not complaints, because people have a right to complain if their train doesn't turn up, absolutely, but just like alternative routes, providing real-time updates to service disruptions. And I think effective communication can turn a potentially negative experience into a positive one. If we show we're proactive and responsive to customer needs, then that makes a difference. So using the data to make the experience better for the customer takes a lot of work, but actually, over time, and AI now is loading. I know that, the things that you can do with that now is very different from, I've not worked in rail for maybe 3 or 4 years. So, but even that's transforming things as well. But yeah, that's my answer to that question, I think.
It does, because recently I did a couple of podcast, especially on data science, and AI is actually playing a key role in it. Apart from that, in my previous podcast as well, I have asked this question to a subject matter expertise on cybersecurity, but with you especially highlighting the marketing one, how do you think the rail industry and cybersecurity landscapes, which are both evolving rapidly, how do you stay from a marketing perspective ahead of these changes and ensure that your marketing strategies remain relevant and effective? Can you share any example of how you have successfully adopted your approach to meet new challenges or leverage emerging opportunities?
I mean, it's a constant challenge as a marketeer. Yeah. I mean, just talking as a marketeer rather than a marketeer in cyber to start with, you need to be constantly learning and evolving. I mean, otherwise I'd still be doing like fax marketing. You know what I mean? If I'd not learned and evolved and everything, constantly learning. I did my degree my marketing degree when the internet didn't really exist. So if you looked at my Kotler marketing book from when I did my degree, there's no internet in there. There's no mention of internet. So I think to constantly educate yourself. So I think even from a cybersecurity, you have to prioritise staying, keeping yourself informed about the latest trends, technologies, and regulatory developments. And both in rail, it's important. It's not just in cybersecurity, but it's rail and cybersecurity. It's those two things and how they fit. So, and be the leader in the information. And it can be challenging because it requires continuous monitoring of industry publications, attending relevant conferences, seminars, maintaining partnerships with industry, experts. And for me, it's not about spewing out this information like it's just providing a view on that. We found this trend. Not just say we found this trend. We found this trend, or we found this. Here's some additional information to that. You can be the source of information, but don't just be the person passing it on. Add some context to it. Add some relevant, meaningful thoughts around it. So I think that continuous monitoring of research, providing it to people, but also adding some context to it is important. The other one is innovation. But I think when I started to answer this question, I talked about the fact that as a marketer, you have to constantly innovate. You have to constantly be on top of things. So that doesn't mean using technology for the sake of it, but it's using innovation to make your marketing more effective. I use AI not every day, but most days. I find it really useful as almost like an assistant. So if I've written something and I think, could that be better? I put it in there and get it to reword it. And I think, no, my version was still pretty good. I'll forget the AI. And also it helps me search through data. So if I've got lots of data and I want it to analyse it, you can do things like that. So it's useful. I think if I look at AI, it can also, I've used it extensively, not in this role, but in other roles in digital advertising, because you can take that data and it can suggest better adverts. It can suggest what's working better. So you can take your Google ads, you can use AI, and you can and Google are adding that AI element in, but you can do lots of things around that as well. In terms of examples, I think COVID challenged us. And I know everyone has used this, but it was a time we really had to we had to think differently, really, really differently.
Yes.
I was working for a rail operator and lockdown happened and basically we had to scale back all the marketing we had planned for East and beyond. I knew for the foreseeable future that probably only key workers would be using the rail network. It was just nobody was travelling, nobody was going anywhere. But I also knew that at some point people would come back to rail. I knew that this, the pandemic would end at some point. So I developed a strategy that didn't pull all our marketing. And I started to think outside of COVID because everyone was thinking COVID. And I thought, okay, well, my thesis in my final year at university was around marketing through a recession. So it's a long time ago. Hold on a minute. Right. Because what that showed is the brands that recovered most well and quickly after a recession were the ones that kept some marketing presence throughout it. Didn't have to be massive, but people, think about it. People were reading more newspapers during a recession. They watched more TV. So they're actually consuming more marketing than they ever do during a non-recession because more people are out of work. Same was due with COVID. People were consuming more content. They were going online. So I went and found data that supported that. I didn't go back to my original thesis because it was written in the 90s, but I went out and I found that data. And there's, I think Mark Rippert, who's a big marketing kind of guru, was saying a similar thing. And I developed a strategy which showed that if we continued marketing, albeit at a much lower level, and we had to be very careful. We couldn't say, hey, go on the train, have days out. But we continued working with the comms team and we continued to support key workers and them travelling on the trains. Then I knew we'd have a much better chance of our marketing being more successful post-COVID. And actually during COVID, I worked on a campaign for the following summer because I was ready for when I thought people would be getting back on trains. I think that answers your question, but you have to innovate and think outside of your industry sometimes,
Yeah, it does. And how do you think, Joe, if there are shifts in regulatory landscapes, will impact the way rail companies market their services and products?
I wish I had a crystal, like a magic marketing ball where I could see the future, but they don't exist. I think there'll be more emphasis on cybersecurity awareness within the rail industry, definitely. The increase in digitisation of railway operations is, when I first started in rail, we had trains that went up and down the track and had a kind of a lever went on and off and doors open. That was about it. And the business that I worked for, we had an entire digitisation of the entire fleet, both new trains and the old trains were retrofitted with it. It's happening all over the world. It's happening globally. And I think you're going to see a greater emphasis on cybersecurity awareness in the next 18 months to 2 years, definitely. Whether it comes from a safety angle or whether it comes from a digital angle, and maybe it's the combination of the both, I'm not sure. What else? I think AI and machine learning is going to play a significant role in enhancing cybersecurity measures because it will be learning all the time.
Correct. Even I reckon that.
Yeah, I think so. With, offering that predictive analysis and threat detection capabilities so you can provide customers with more proactive security solutions. I think the rise of like the Internet of Things and all these you think about a train, all the connected devices there's going to be. Rail operators will talk about operational technology, and you've got IT versus OT. But I think these smart connected devices are going to increasingly bring cybersecurity risks. So I think a focus on promoting cybersecurity solutions that can effectively promote, protect OT devices and the Internet of Things. I mean, digital transformation is happening, cloud-based platforms, mobile applications, even with signalling and things. You know what I mean? Everything is changing. You've got to have protective cabinets around your signalling now, not just for cable theft, but also, there's things in there. You can have electronic magnetic waves that can go into cabinets. They have to be protected. It's massive, I think. And so I think regulatory and compliance standards are going to drive some of that. I think all of these things will be important. I just wish I knew. All these years, like when I've worked in different industries, I just wish I had this ball to see 4 years out. But you can only make your best guesses, I think, and be prepared. I think just be prepared for it, think ahead.
Great answer, Joe. Before I let you go, I want to ask my last question, not just like a one piece of advice, but this is a bit of a leadership question. Would you tell us about the art of giving feedback as a senior leader? It's very critical, to provide feedback to your team's success, growth, and how do you manage that balance and also provide constructive feedback?
Well, I mean, I've led teams for a long time, often on big teams, smaller teams. I think what I've learned over the years is that it's about, to begin with, before we get to the feedback bit, you have to build trust with that team. When you build that trust and that mutual respect, then feedback becomes more of a natural part of that relationship. So, there was a really good report done by Google about psychological safety. So if people feel like safe in their team, and it really is about feeling safe, then feedback becomes part of the everyday teamwork. So I found in meetings, people feel free to, I'll come to one-to-one in a second, but in meetings, if people feel like they're in a really great team, even people who are quiet or introverted feel they can speak up and their ideas will be valued, and I think when people feel safe, they'll ask questions and provide feedback to each other. It becomes a natural part of that. I know that my teams, I'm quite happy to be challenged. Like if I'm in a meeting and I've had an idea and someone goes, Joe, we thought about this. And I'm like, oh yeah, they're right. I'm happy to receive it as much as give it. I think it's also about having compassion. And by that, I mean, don't mistake compassion for not giving feedback, right? Because I will always give it. And it's not about being so nice that you say, oh, everything's fine and you don't give feedback. I think it's about giving feedback that's cleared and also is centered on improvement, not criticism. So you don't dismiss it, you still talk about it. Yeah. So I think feedback should always be given when it's needed, don't wait till the next one-to-one. Don't wait 3 weeks to tell somebody something, If you need to provide guidance, then give it as things happen. Make sure that you focus on providing support as it's needed. And I think it's a two-way process. I also, when I give that feedback, I find out, is there anything could I have done better? Did I not give clear instructions? Did I not spend enough time briefing or taking you through the task? And I find out what they need next time to improve or do things differently. And I don't centre it upon them. You didn't get the report. And it's like, what was it about the report that you struggled with? What questions are amazing during feedback? It's not you didn't do this. It's very accusatory. It's what was it about the report that you struggled with? What was it about this? And when you ask what questions, they're less harsh than a why. Why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done that? Ask what questions. I was a certified coach for a while when I was working, and also mentor. I'm still mentor now. And what questions are incredibly valuable, and they can work it really, really well. So I think you do have to give feedback. Do not shy away from it, but do it in a way that allows both you and that person to grow and learn from it.
Wow.
And I think that will be my answer.
Great answer. I really like that. What questions? Great feedback. Wow, it's been amazing talking to you, Joe. Right from business to cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and to leadership. We covered in 30 minutes, I think. What else can we cover? It was a pleasure talking to you, and thank you for joining this pod.
Oh, thank you too. It's been lovely.
I believe everyone listening to this podcast has got something to take away from today's discussion. If you like this podcast, please listen, follow, and share this podcast within your network. If you believe we should be sharing your story or someone within your network, there is a railway leader who should be here sharing his or her contribution to this industry, contact me on railway transportation systems at gmail.com. Thank you for your time today. See you next fortnight. Until then, stay safe and take care of yourself.